What's going on, everybody? We're back out in the garden today. It is early July, and believe it or not, we got some seeds to start. In today's episode, we're gonna be starting not only a bunch of seeds, but we're gonna be going through seeds that you can be starting in early July that you can still have a harvest by the end of the season. I'm also gonna be talking about some crops that you can intercrop for better success, even when it gets hot and humid. So let's go. So the seeds that we're going to be starting today are relatively fast maturing crops. They're crops that they don't require 80, 90 days to mature. They only need 45, 50, maybe 60 days at most, because we do have fall coming, believe it or not. As much as I don't want to think about fall in early July, I'm still just barely getting into the summer mood. The fact of the matter is that if we're going to be starting seeds right now, a lot of your very fast maturing crops, your cold weather crops, it's just too hot right now to plant those. But there are some kind of intermediate term crops, as we'll call them. It's not a technical term, but I guess it's technical if you want to call them intermediate term crops. It's just somewhere in between a very fast maturing cold weather crop like spinach or lettuce or radishes, and then a longer maturing crop like peppers, for instance. So those crops that are kind of intermediate term are going to be something like kale. Kale, I've got here some bare necessities kale and some red Russian kale. We do have a whole bed of kale already, but we don't have these in the garden yet. I want to grow those. They can handle some pretty hot weather. They grow through some cold weather as well. So they're going to be a crop that we can grow right now, grow through summer, into fall, and even into early winter, no problem. We've got some beets. We have some Detroit dark red and Forma Nova beet. I think that there's a lot of people sleeping on the Forma Nova. It is a fantastic pickling beet. It's also great because it's not too large. It tends to be a little more almost egg-shaped, if you will. So you can plant a few more in a smaller area than you would get normally. Try the Forma Nova, it's great. Head over to migardener.com and check those out. But we're gonna be starting some more beets as well. We typically get about 3 harvests of beets per season. We get a spring harvest, we get a summer harvest, and we get a fall harvest of beets because they only take about 45 to 50 days to fully mature. Now we have cucumbers. The second round of cucumbers in. Our cucumber bed that we have is looking incredible. But we're gonna plant some cucumbers over on our in-ground garden so we can get some of those growing because we don't have cucumbers over there yet, and we're missing my 2 favorite varieties of cucumbers when it comes to slicing cucumbers. We got the Poinsett 76 and the Tender Green. 2 amazing slicing cucumbers that just do so well, and they mature pretty quick. So we're gonna be harvesting cucumbers from these seeds that we're planting in about 50 to 65 days, which is great. Bunching onions, there's always time to grow some bunching onions. They are a must-have in every garden, whether it's spring, summer, or fall. They're a biennial, so they're gonna overwinter if we don't harvest them this year, so we can harvest them even next year. And then we have some onions in the bed just next to us, and they're growing, they're doing great, but they're bulbing onions, and you can't grow bulbing onions right now. And so the alternative is if you want some type of onion to grow, try bunching onions. They're so easy to grow. I absolutely love them. Got a brassica here. This one is kohlrabi. Now, if you've never grown kohlrabi, you definitely should try it. It's really heat tolerant. It loves to grow in just about any weather condition you throw at it. So we're gonna throw some kohlrabi in our garden because I don't have that. And I love to make, in the summertime, I'll take kohlrabi because it grows this kind of like alien head type bulb thing. I don't even know what it is. It's crazy. It's just really cool. And what we'll do is we will shave that off on a mandolin slicer with some apples, and then we just throw in like a little vinaigrette, like a sugary vinaigrette. Very simple, so delicious. It's an awesome late summer, early fall treat. It's very refreshing and it's quite a fan favorite. We also have some okra. So we're gonna throw some okra over in the in-ground garden because the okra still has some time left. It does take about 55 to 60 days to mature. So it does have enough time until our first frost, plenty enough time until it gets cold for us to grow some okra. And okra tends to like hot or humid weather. So it's going to do really well come like August, early September when it gets super hot and muggy. We got some bush beans here. So we got some Top Notch and we got some Gold Rush wax bean. Those are great. They are super easy to grow, very fast maturing. Our other beans we planted, they are rocking and rolling. I'll show you those in a little bit, but we're gonna plant another harvest. Plus we don't have any golden beans over there. Those are just green beans. They're Blue Lake bush bean. Up next are some root crops. Now I'm really excited about these root crops because a lot of people don't think about these root crops, and oftentimes they're omitted from a lot of summer gardens. And if you haven't grown these yet and you haven't tried them in the summer, give it a shot. They're great. We have here some carrots. We have some oxheart carrot, tender sweet carrot, and rainbow carrots. Now, if you've never grown carrots in the summertime, They can be a tad bit more challenging because they have germination issues. If the soil gets too dry, if the soil gets too hot, in the gleaming sun of summer, you can have some germination issues. Simple way to overcome that is just to take some cardboard. Once you sow your carrot seeds, throw some cardboard down, wet it, they'll do great. Lift the cardboard though. Every 2-3 days, lift the cardboard. Once you start to see the carrot sprouts, then lift it off. It's mainly just getting them germinating. That's the biggest hurdle. And then keeping them well watered until they're growing. Once they're up by about this much, then you can practice deep watering, which is the act of watering deeply, letting the soil dry out, letting the water go deep again, then letting it dry out. And that will help the roots, the tap roots, to go down deep through the soil, and you won't end up with a wiry, fibrous carrot mess. Then I got some turnips. I absolutely have fallen in love with turnips. They're, I think, one of the most slept on root crops. People just kind of perceive them as, I don't know, like the ugly stepchild of the beet. I don't know. It's just like not a crop that a lot of people really like to grow. I don't know why. They're fantastic. We got some Shogun turnips here. They're a white turnip. We got some purple top white globe turnip and some golden ball turnips. They're by far some of my favorite kind of root crops to grow, other than other than beets. I really like beets, but you can cook them up and they're so easy to grow. They require very little maintenance. They're just really, really nice. And last but not least, I got some herbs to start. So we have a bunch of basil. We are going to be growing 4 different kinds more of basil. I got some more planted in the garden already. We got some cinnamon basil, blue spice basil, Thai basil, and licorice basil. And those basils are going to be planted around these different crops for pest protection, or pest prevention, I should say. And then we're also going to be planting them because I'm going to be making a 4 basil herb blend. One thing that we've always wanted to do is grow a bunch of basil, dry it for the off season, and then combine it together and make our own little herb blend. And that's something that Mrs. Emma Gardner tasked me with doing because she really likes those 4 varieties. So we're going to be doing that for her. And then we've got some Ducat dill. We're making pickles this year. So we got some Ducat dill, one of our favorite varieties for that. Just produces a ton of the foliage rather than a lot of the flower heads. So we got the Ducat dill. Mammoth Long Island dill is also great for that. And then last but not least is we have some Leisure Split cilantro. Now, I saved this one for last from our seed section of this video because a lot of you are going to say, Luke, I thought cilantro doesn't like to grow in the heat. And that's correct. It doesn't like to go in the heat, and it probably won't do all that well. But the reason why I'm growing a little bit of cilantro is because I want to try a test. I've heard quite a few people say that if we intercrop the cilantro with taller crops that can protect it from the heat, from the hot sun, that you might be able to get a harvest. And so I am planting this one, not because I think it's going to do exceedingly well, but because I've heard of a lot of people that have said, basically, if you plant it around like your okra, for instance, taller crops, or around like your tomatoes, those taller crops, that they'll get that filtered sun and it will kind of just help to shade them from the hotter sun, which would make them go to seed. I don't know if it's going to work, but we'll try it. So I'm going to throw some cilantro in there as well. Now we have one crop that we started from seed about 3, maybe 4 weeks ago. And they are probably some of my favorite crops to grow in the fall for a fall garden. And a lot of people are always asking about it, but there's also a lot of people that forget about it. And that's tomatoes. When it comes to planting fall tomatoes, I think it's just still something that most people don't think is possible. Now we started these from seed about 4 weeks ago. And these are a fast growing determinate tomato. These are Ace 55s. I have 2 Ace 55 tomatoes. And then I have 2 determinate Roma tomatoes. Now, we usually grow a lot more than that. We have so many tomatoes here that I'm not going to plant a ton more tomatoes just because we are going to be swimming in tomatoes. But for those that are looking to plant a fall harvest of tomatoes, here in July, it is hot, it is starting to get humid, and our tomatoes, like the ones behind us, are in full swing. They're in peak production right now. They are putting on tomatoes like crazy. We're just starting to get the first ripe ones of the season. And so it's kind of an odd thing where people would say, well, why would I want to plant a fall harvest of tomatoes? Because, like these crops behind me, the tomatoes, they get tired. They get diseased, and come August, come early September, we don't want to have disease-stressed tomatoes. We want to have plants that are looking incredible. And so what do? Well, in early July, and I've said this, so many people think that it's crazy that I do this, but I do it every single year. And you can look back, I do it every single year. I plant determinate, fast ripening tomatoes. And that way, I have tomatoes that can go in the ground right now. They mature in about 55 to 65 days. And if you look at the calendar, our first frost is right around October 20th, give or take-ish, October 20th. I'm planting these. These were started in mid-June, early June. So these were started in early June. They're getting planted in the garden in early July as a seedling. And they're going to be growing and maturing far later than the tomatoes behind me, than the tomatoes we planted in early spring. And that means when those are done, these are just coming into production. Why that is such a mystery or an enigma to people is beyond me, because it makes sense to me. But again, some people just think that, some people think it's impossible. Some people think it's all theater magic. Other people think that I'm just saying to do it and I don't actually do it. But in fact, I do it every single year, and every single year we get an abundant fall harvest of tomatoes. And the reason why I do determinants is because they grow quickly, they mature quickly, but also your determinants tend to be a tad bit more disease resistant when it gets hotter and more humid, and it gets cooler nights with wet leaves. You tend to get some blight issues and stuff like that. Your determinants can tend to be a tad bit more disease resistant. And then secondly, these are tomatoes that I'm gonna be canning. I'm gonna be canning most of these tomatoes, so I want them all at once. I don't want one tomato here, another tomato there, and I don't want them slowly ripening. I want a bunch all at once, where I can then bring them into the kitchen, can them up, and then have them for the off season. So that's, again, another reason why I do the determinants. But you can do cherry tomatoes, you can do paste tomatoes, you do slicing tomatoes. There's so many different varieties of determinate, fast maturing tomatoes. I just target anything less than 65 days. I start them, like I said, early to mid-June. I'm throwing them out into the garden in early to mid-July, and they're ready to go. So now that we got the tomatoes planted, it's time to plant some cucumbers. What we're gonna do for our cucumbers is we're going to simply just make a little hole here. We're gonna put 2 or 3 seeds in each hole, and we're gonna let them grow like that. No, I'm not gonna come back and thin. I didn't thin over here. I'm not gonna thin right here. Reason why is because cucumbers, for me, here in Michigan, they never tend to have that long of a lifespan. Usually I'll get, 1 or 2 good sized harvests out of them before the cucumber beetles come in, or before the powdery mildew comes in, heat wipes them out. Just cucumbers for me, I look at them more like a fast turnaround crop. They do take about 60 to 70 days to fully mature, but at the end of the day, I might only be harvesting from them for like 3 to 4 weeks. And so for the amount of time they're growing compared to the amount of time I'm harvesting from them, it's a bit disproportionate. So I tend to just let them go crazy, let them produce a bunch, and then just pull them out of the ground. Now, if I was trellising them up, they might have a little bit longer of a life expectancy because they're off the ground, they're getting better airflow. But again, I'm not trellising them. I'm not getting them off the ground. I'm not growing them up a string. I'm not putting them on cattle panel. All of things I could do. And at our old garden, we had cattle panel trellises. I did grow them up there, and I did get probably another 2 to 3 weeks of growth out of them. But at the end of the day, I'm just gonna grow them right along the ground, let them bush and grow like crazy, just like the ones I've got behind me. And they do so well, they produce a ton, and then they just fizzle out. And that's fine by me. I'm gonna get a bunch of cucumbers. That bed right there behind me, I'm probably gonna get, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm gonna be getting 5, 10, maybe even more than 10 cucumbers per day off that bed for the next like 2 or 3 weeks. It's gonna be incredible. So I just throw them in and they'll be good. Up next, we got our dill. I'm gonna throw our dill in the same bed I just planted our cucumbers. So I just made a bunch of rows, and I'm just gonna sprinkle the seed in pretty haphazardly, because ultimately, again, by the time I'm harvesting cucumbers, I'm gonna be just chopping this stuff like crazy to make pickles, because our goal this year is I'd like to make 20 quarts of pickles. That's the goal, 20 quarts. So I think we can do it, but that's gonna require a lot of dill. Also, I love dill. It's something, I make dilly potatoes. We make fish and chips. I'll throw that into like homemade tartar sauce. I mean, it's just such an awesome, delicious crop. Biggest thing, don't let it go to seed. If it goes to seed, you'll regret it forever. So I'm not going to let any of this go to seed. We're just going to aggressively harvest it, cut it back, and it's going to be awesome. Alrighty, so just got done making my rows here. And by the way, a lot of you guys asked me in the latest video what this was. This is just, it's kind of like a multi-hoe. I don't know really what it is. It's made by Corona, not a sponsor. In fact, I'm glad they're not sponsoring because this handle kind of hurts your hands, but it is really nice because it gives me the ability to kind of extend. I gotta be honest. It gives me the ability to kind of extend without bending over a lot, but I really like it. It's kind of nice. So we're gonna put in some cilantro and okra. And like I said, we're gonna be doing something different that I would not normally do, but because you only live once and a garden is, it's pretty temporary. I mean, from season to season, if I make a mistake, just write it down in the old journal, which you should be keeping a journal, by the way, if you don't have one, because then when you try experimental stuff, you can see if you liked it or not and what results you got. So we're gonna be putting down some okra today, and I've got enough okra for just a little bit here. We're not huge okra fans, but you know, I'll be honest, it's definitely a crop that I've grown to like more and more as I've gotten older. It's, I don't know, it's just good. It's kind of refreshing in a weird way. Even when it's cooked, it's really good. I don't know, I really like it. A lot of people don't like it because it's slimy, but I think if it's cooked the right way, boy, it's so good. I just really enjoy it. Some fresh jambalaya or fried okra, or, I mean, heck, I'll even just steam it and slice it up, and it's really good with some salt water and stuff, or some salted water, I should say. Lots of ways to enjoy it. But I'm just putting down the okra here. I'll come back and thin later to the healthiest plant about every 8 inches. So I'm really just sprinkling this in here pretty densely. And we're using Emma Gardner seeds, obviously. So a little bit goes a long way. I could have done 3 rows easily for how much I just put in here, but I'll thin to the healthiest plant. And those are on the inside row. Now, on the outside row, because I want to be able to harvest, a big mistake I see people making, especially with a method like the Three Sisters, which is planting corn, beans, and squash in close proximity. It's a very popular way of intercropping. The only thing that I see wrong with that is, depending on how you orient your crops, it can be a little difficult to get in there and harvest. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the shorter cilantro on the outside. That way, since this is my walk path through the garden, when I wanna harvest cilantro, I can literally just come in here, harvest my cilantro. I don't have to get in between the okra to really harvest, and it's not going to be difficult to do my harvesting. So now I'm gonna go with cilantro. And again, this is very experimental. It's very low stakes. It's a $2 pack of seeds from MI Gardner. If you get them on sale, like right now, they're actually on sale. Go check out migardner.com and get 20% off your seeds while supplies last. And it's even less than $2. So it's pretty low stakes if something goes wrong. But we're just we're gonna put some seeds here and see if the shade from the okra growing up protects them enough to keep them cool so that they don't bolt quite as fast. I'm not expecting them not to bolt. I'm just expecting them to maybe bolt a little less quickly, if that makes sense. And I think, from what people have been telling me, it should work. But it also is totally dependent on how warm the summer gets. If it's a really warm summer, you could have all the shade in the world and the ambient temperature is still going to be too much for the cilantro. Here we go. All right, so I'm just going to cover it up, and we're going to finish up planting some cucumbers. Now, just like in the raised bed, I'm just going to throw some holes in here. I'm going to plant my seeds. I'm not super worried about spacing. I'm spacing them about 2.5 feet, maybe 3 feet apart. Each mound's going to get 3 seeds. That way we can just throw some seeds in, let them go crazy. And the great thing about being on ground is that ideally I'd like to get them off the ground. That's in a perfect situation. But because I don't have them off the ground, letting them sprawl does allow us to cover the ground. It's going to cover the ground like a mulch, essentially smothering out weeds, protecting the soil from evaporation, protecting the soil microbes from being solarized by the hot sun. Because this garden, if you haven't noticed, is very open still. It still has not filled out yet. And that's one of the things that I always encourage you to do, is to plant closely. Like our tomatoes and beans are real close together. As they fill out, they're naturally gonna cover the soil, and there really won't be any exposed soil after like a week or two. If you have a lot of exposed soil, that's where you start to run into some problems. So ultimately, I'm not gonna care too much that they're not up on a trellis, because one of the benefits of having them on the ground is the ground's gonna be protected. I'm gonna throw in, I think I'm gonna do, I don't know, we'll do eight spots of beans, or of cucumbers. And that way, we've got enough cucumbers. We're gonna have so many. But I wanna get enough cucumbers going that I can meet that goal that I've got of trying to get 20 quarts of pickles. And just like in our raised beds, we wanna make sure that the soil is not being trampled on too much, because you see, the thing is that in ground, you have a tendency to be able to think you can walk anywhere. And soil compaction still will happen even if you have good quality soil. And I don't want to compact the soil. I don't want to press air out. So I'm really kind of being mindful to keep to my walking paths that are going to be a little more compressed, a little more compacted. And I'm also being mindful that I'm, kind of keeping this almost like it as if it was a raised bed. It's in ground, but I'm treating it like a raised bed to ensure that it doesn't get too compacted. Cover those up and we're good to go. So those are all the crops that we are planting in the month of July. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. I also do hope that you're still enjoying these videos. I know that summertime, we have a tendency to get less viewership because people are already out in their gardens, they're enjoying the gardens. And I know that a lot of people view our channel as kind of an information database, a library, if you will, that they can reference to learn more about gardening in the winter months when they're planning their garden, or they're running into problems that they had, or they're kind of trying to troubleshoot problems that they had that previous growing season. So it's very natural for us to have more viewership. But for you that sticks around, or if you're watching this 6 months from now in the winter, I appreciate it. But for those that are watching right here and now, beginning of July, I appreciate it because it does mean a lot that you stick around, that you learn something, that you enjoy what we're putting out. And so let me know in the comments box below that you're excited, what you're excited about, and some other ideas you might have for video content. I really would love to help at least one gardener out every single video. That's my main goal. I don't care if there's 1,000 people that watch or if there's 1 million people that watch. I just want to help one person. That's my main goal. So as always, this is Luke from the My Gardener channel, reminding you to grow bigger, and we'll catch you all later. See ya. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider clicking this one. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. It's free, and we upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have vegetable seeds, fertilizer, or tools. If you need any of those, consider visiting mygardener.com. Links will be in the description box below. We've got you covered. And as always, we'll see you all in the garden. Take care.